Welcome to the Fruitful Faith Women on Mission podcast. This podcast is created for purpose-driven women just like you who crave more. On the Fruitful Faith podcast, you can expect Christ-centered conversations that will help you to cultivate a life that you and He love. We'll be talking about topics that matter, topics that impact your everyday life. We'll talk about anything from how to transition with grace, to what to do when you're overwhelmed, to how to be content and joyful right where God's got you. It's going to be good. Let's dive on in. Hey, and welcome back to the Fruitful Faith Women on Mission podcast. I'm Alexandra Cavell. I'm a certified master life coach for purpose-driven women who crave more. I'm so happy that you're here today. And as always, I'm really looking forward to this topic that we've got, and it's all about the permission to pause. And so as I think about that, I think of the summertime. And thanks for just your graciousness to stick with the Fruitful Faith Women on Mission podcast, especially in the summer too, where things just maybe aren't as routine and rhythmed as usual. I know my family just enjoyed time away. We got to see a lot of friends and family up north recently and have them meet baby. It was the first time because, of course, of COVID, having a lot of our extended friends and family and relatives meet our baby girl. She is 8 months now. And so it was super special just to have that time and have the people you love on your child. And so, with that, it got me thinking about pausing and creating space to be and connect, and maybe not be as productive or structured as you typically are. So that's sort of what kind of got me thinking of what to connect with y'all on today, and it's pausing, right? So summers, we think about it, there's a lot going on, but also sometimes it feels like nothing is going on, if that resonates with you at all too. So I was thinking we can talk about, well, what would it look like to create space during this time, to be intentional about that and to pause? What would it be like to have more margin, but to be comfortable in that extra space? Because it's one thing creating that extra space, but then it's another to sit in it and enjoy it, right? And so I know that so many of my clients are really, women who are amazing. They do a lot. They're super productive. They're high achievers, and that's incredible. But that can make pausing, stopping, taking a breath be one of the hardest things that's on their to-do list. So if that's you, let's talk about today what it would look like to have permission to pause. There's such a benefit to this pause that I don't want you to miss out on. Okay, so let's dive in. So first off, think for a moment about what is getting in the way of your pause. Right? This time, this space, it's available to all of us, right? No matter who we are, what's going on in life. It's the truth, right? And it's something that Jesus even created the space to do. He made that a priority to step away, to pause, to take a breath, to be with God. So let's take a second to think about, for you, what is getting in the way of this sacred space? So a few thoughts on what that might be. Maybe one of them is really real to you. Maybe it's the belief that if you take a break, you're not doing enough. Maybe you think that if you take a break, that's being lazy. Maybe you're go, go, go and worried that if you take a moment to breathe, you'll lose your momentum. Maybe you're fearful about the fact that if you do stop, you're wondering, what will you actually do with that time? Or maybe even just the idea of stopping feels really uncomfortable and you don't want to be in that uncomfortable space. So you just keep on keeping on. What is it for you that's getting in the way of the pause? Identify that. So I'm reading Bob Goff's book, it's Dream Big, and he makes the point in that book that stopping, it's not something so many times we think of as a luxury, right? It's not a poor choice. And in fact, it actually demonstrates wisdom and maturity. And it makes me think too of the analogy of a GPS. So, like, think about this. Imagine that you're in a city and maybe you have a general idea of the direction that you want to go. But there are, of course, being in a city, there can be traffic, there can be several ways to get to a certain destination. And the question here, I guess, is would you just start driving? Would you just not pull out your GPS and just go, just take a direction and just go? And if you did, how long would you go? Would you go for 10 minutes before you checked in? Would you go for an hour before you started to think of whatever this destination you were headed towards, how to get there? Would you go for, days or years? So, think about the same thing with your life. Are you just going and living without direction as to where you're headed? Could something be avoided? Could you be more focused or intentional about where you're going? Or are you just going because it feels good to be moving? Are you just going on without reflecting on the purpose behind your choices or the actions that you're taking and where they're leading you or where they're not leading you? So, hopefully, this is eye opening as you think about that idea with your destination. Are you going somewhere with a focus or are you just moving, not knowing where to? So I would argue that part of the pause is about trust. So to be able to take a pause, we've got to have trust to be able to do that thing. And it reminds me of a time a couple of years back when I was driving to church and was thinking about everything that I wanted to get through and get done on that day and just had a moment with God where he just said, well, wait a second. We do this thing with tithing, right? We're trusting God with 10%, or more even of our finances. And he prompted me like, well, why don't you trust me with your time? Right. And Sabbath is a part of that. And so got to thinking, oh goodness, like, well, why am I not doing this? Like, what if I trusted God with my time too? And so maybe that connects with you. Think about what might be there in that space when you do have that time and trust him to do good things with the rest of the time remaining. So give him your time, trust that he used them well and that he will take care of the rest. It's, really exciting to think about what Christ will do in this space when you invite him into it. And then also think about if you take a pause, if you give yourself permission to do that, what could it be like for you to experience? What emotions might be there? What excitement might be there? How might it feel like an exhale for you? So think about that, enjoy that. And then consider what might be on the other side of your pause. Instead of just thinking about, well, what's it going to be like to take it? How might it be hard or just getting wrapped up in that? Like, think big, right? What is the value of doing this? What's the treasure? Maybe it's answers. Maybe it's connection to God or clarity on what is ahead. Maybe it's the ability to let go of something that just felt, so incredibly important. Think about if you're able to do this well, if you're able to pause well, like what relief might be on the other side? Is it a maybe more meaningful life, a nurtured marriage where you show up? Maybe it's a change in your career or a deeper connection to community that you've been craving so much. And just remembering that and giving yourself permission to pause, that truly sometimes stopping is the best way to get started. So, a quick little story here. I'll say that taking a vacation, time and time again, it shows me that it is one of the best things that I can do. And it's interestingly enough, I still remember back, gosh, I guess this must be 2018. My husband and I went down to the Florida Panhandle and we stayed around the Alice Beach, Rosemary Beach area. Love it. It's so gorgeous there. And we were doing a sunset walk on the beach, and we really started to talk about when I was doing coaching, but it was on the side. I had my corporate job, I was doing coaching nights and weekends. And we started talking about, well, is this really going to be something big? Are we going to have you take the leap? And what is that going to look like? And when would that be? And so, this walk, this vacation, creating this space to pause That was impetus for making the decision to pursue grace-based Christian coaching full time. So if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't created the room to do that and to have that conversation with my husband, I, who knows if this would have happened, when it would have happened. And it's almost scary to think about that in some ways. I'm just so, so grateful for that pause and what came from that pause. And I hope that there's something there for you too, and that encourages you. So, creating space to dream and think about what really matters, it's everything. It's so valuable. So, a couple little phrases too to add on to this that could be helpful or encouraging for you is one, sometimes we've got to slow down to speed up. I know myself too. Sometimes it feels like stopping is the last thing I want to do or need to do when I've got a mile long to do list. But sometimes that's the best thing you can do so you can slow down to speed up. Then also the idea that pausing is productive. Pausing is productive. Let that sit with you and soak in there. And connected to that, but a little bit different, even better is prayer. Prayer is productive and remembering that's the truth too. Pausing, getting quiet, connecting with Him, like that matters. That changes things. All right. So, how do you actually do all this? How do you create the space? So, think about how you're going to plan for this. How are you going to take this pause seriously? Maybe even more seriously than your, to do appointments, if you will. So you might want to loosely plan what this time is going to look like so it doesn't feel maybe so scary once you get there. So consider like, is this going to be time in your Bible? Is it going to be time, reading a book and then thinking about what you just read? Maybe it's going to be time going through. I know I've done this before too. I have piles of post-its. Maybe it's time to like go through all of those and think about where do you actually need to spend your time and what can you trash and throw away. Maybe it looks like going for a walk. Like I had said, that's one of my personal favorite ways to pause. So it's pausing, but also, sometimes movement or different sights are helpful too during the pause. And I'd recommend giving yourself at least 30 minutes to start, maybe even as much as 2 hours, just a chunk of time enough that you can really kind of have some space to separate from whatever is that's going on in the day and really have time to think critically. And then consider it if what the success is through carving out the time, through the discipline of doing that. So, are you going to be able to celebrate this time? Would you say if you had heard from God? Do you feel like this time will be a success if it means getting more organized? Maybe it's, mentally or actually physically. And maybe it's thinking about just simply having a big, better picture of what is next than you did before. Just think about that for a minute. What success look like for you in this time? And then once you have it, even pausing to pause about the pause is super helpful. So think about like, what did you learn? What was important about that time once you took it? What came up that you didn't expect? What gratitude or thanksgiving do you have to lift up to God that He did through this time? What are you going to do because of what came out of the pause? Think about what's next that'll move you forward. And then you might want to consider too, like what might, quote unquote, hijack your success? What might put it at risk? So going back to that example, I had my pause, and that really led me to say, hey, this is when I'm going to do grace-based Christian coaching full time. But I would say the hijack there would be, and maybe a doubt, right? The attitude around it, like, well, what if? What if it doesn't work? What if this turns out really differently than I'm hoping? And so think about, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to help with that? Because it was scary. It was scary to take a leap, leaving a corporate job that I actually loved and had a great team, and had great, income. But I had to remember and think about, you know, lots of things, right? What was on the other side of it? And the two things there that were helpful for me that might be helpful for you to make sure that whatever it is that comes out of this time is not put at risk is one, a timeline. So saying, like, hey, this is when the thing is actually going to happen, like put a date to it. That is super helpful. It makes it incredibly real. And then just gets you going. And then the other thing is the accountability. So, who do you need to tell about this thing? So, clearly, my husband and I had a conversation. He knew about it, he was aware of it, and then shared it with a life group and a Bible study too. And so, having people ask you about it, follow up with you on it, that's going to make it real. So, those are a couple thoughts right there for you. All right, so that's really the permission to pause. So if you're thinking about pausing, but like, this seems it shouldn't be that hard, but it is hard for me. Like I hear you, I get you, I have been there too. And so if you want to think about doing this, but doing it well or doing it more quickly than you might on your own, coaching creates such a sweet space to give you that gift of a pause. So it creates room for you to get quiet and dig in and hear from God. So to do all of those things and then take that time, create a plan from it, create something that is custom to you and who He created you to be, who you are wired to be, and take that so that you can do something with it and move forward and think through the hard stuff, and just be able to walk in alignment with His plan. There's truly nothing like it. And I just want that. I want that for you. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I would love to talk with you. And you can head to gracebasechristiancoaching.com, and then you'll see there's a book online tab, and then you can reserve a clarity call where we'll talk more about what is going on in your world, and what that might mean and what the Christian coaching experience looks like. So, whether we connect that way or you just go off from this podcast and create your own pausing time, oh, I just pray that it is so blessed, that God comes into it in a really special way. He feels very close and very near, and that just it changes things. That eternity is changed for you and for others because of what comes from this sweet and sacred time. All right, hope you enjoyed this one. Till next time. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fruitful Faith Women on Mission podcast. If you love this episode, I would love for you to subscribe. New episodes will automatically show up on your phone when you subscribe. It's super convenient and you'll make sure you never miss a thing. So excited to share more with you soon.